Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show. I'm your host, and today we have a very special story for you. It's about memory, identity, and second chances. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you woke up one day with no memory of who you were? Would that be a curse or maybe, just maybe, a gift? Our story today explores exactly that question. So get comfortable, maybe grab a cup of coffee, and let me tell you about a man who forgot his name and discovered something incredible about himself. The first thing he noticed was the cold. It seeped through his clothes and made his bones ache terribly. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the bright morning sunlight that filtered through the trees above him. Birds were singing somewhere nearby, and he could hear the distant sound of cars on a busy street. He was lying on a wooden bench in what looked like a small city park. His back hurt from the hard surface, and his neck was stiff from sleeping in such an awkward position. He sat up slowly, running his hands through his messy hair. That's when the panic hit him. He looked around at the unfamiliar park, at the joggers passing by, at the playground where children were starting to arrive with their parents. Nothing looked familiar. Nothing triggered any memory at all. He reached into his pockets, hoping to find something that would tell him who he was. His wallet was gone. His phone was gone. All he had were the clothes on his back and a terrible empty feeling in his chest. He stood up from the bench and walked to the park's entrance. Maybe someone would recognize him. Maybe someone would know his name and tell him where he lived. He felt lost and confused, like a child who had wandered away from his parents. An old woman was feeding pigeons near the fountain. She looked kind, with gentle eyes and a warm smile. He approached her carefully, not wanting to frighten her with his disheveled appearance. "Excuse me," he said, his voice hoarse from sleep. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm having some trouble. Do you know me? Have you seen me before in this park?" The woman looked at him with concern. She shook her head slowly. "I'm sorry, dear. I come here every morning, but I don't recognize you. Are you all right? You look like you need help." He thanked her and moved on. A jogger ran past, and he tried to catch the man's attention. But the jogger just shook his head and kept running. A mother pushing a stroller gave him a worried look and hurried away. As he walked through the neighborhood surrounding the park, he noticed something strange. People seemed to react to him in two very different ways. Some looked at him with fear or suspicion, crossing the street to avoid him. Others seemed relieved to see him, as if they were glad he was there. At a small coffee shop, the barista's face lit up when she saw him. "Oh my goodness, where have you been? We've been so worried about you." "Your usual order is ready." She handed him a cup of black coffee and a blueberry muffin. He stared at her in confusion. "I'm sorry, but I don't remember you. I don't remember anything, actually. Could you tell me my name?" The barista's smile faded. "You're joking, right?" "It's me, Sarah. You come in here every morning at exactly 8:15. Your name is... Wait, you're really serious, aren't you?" She told him his name was David Miller. She said he always paid for his coffee with exact change and always sat at the corner table by the window. He had been coming to her shop for 3 years, but he had never told her much about himself. Sarah gave him his address, which she had written on a napkin once when he had ordered coffee to be delivered. It was just a few blocks away in a run-down apartment building that had seen better days. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and found apartment 3B. The door was unlocked, which seemed strange. He pushed it open and stepped inside, hoping that seeing his own home would bring back some memories. The apartment was small and messy. Dirty dishes filled the sink and empty bottles covered most of the surfaces. The air smelled stale and unpleasant. Newspapers were scattered everywhere, and most of them were weeks old. He walked through the rooms looking for clues about who he was. In the bedroom, he found clothes that fit him. In the bathroom, he found a toothbrush and shampoo. But nothing felt familiar or personal. In the living room, he found a stack of letters that had been opened and thrown aside. Most of them were bills that hadn't been paid. Some were angry letters from his landlord, threatening to evict him if he didn't pay his rent soon. There was also a letter from someone named Linda. It was dated just 2 weeks ago. The letter was full of anger and disappointment. She wrote about how he had let her down again, how he had promised to change but never did. "I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore," the letter said. "I've tried to help you for 5 years, but you don't want to be helped. Don't call me or come to my house. I'm done with you, David." He found more letters from Linda going back several months. Each one showed her growing frustration and sadness. It became clear that she had been his girlfriend, maybe even his fiancée. She had left him because of his drinking and his inability to hold down a job. As he walked around the neighborhood over the next few days, he began to understand why people reacted to him so differently. He visited the local grocery store, and the owner immediately became tense and watchful. "You better not be here to cause trouble again," the owner said. "I told you last time, if you steal anything else, I'm calling the police immediately." At the library, however, the librarian greeted him warmly. "David! I'm so glad to see you. You missed book club last week. We were discussing that mystery novel you recommended to us." She told him that he had been coming to the library regularly for the past year. He had joined their book club and had even volunteered to help with their literacy program for adults who couldn't read well. "You've been such a help to our students," she said. "They really look up to you. You have such a patient way of explaining things." As the days passed, a strange picture began to emerge. It seemed that David Miller had been living 2 completely different lives. During the day, he was a helpful, intelligent man who read books and helped others. At night, he became someone else entirely. The bartender at O'Malley's pub knew him well. "Dave, where you been, buddy? You disappeared for almost a week. I was starting to think you'd finally quit drinking for good." The bartender told him stories about fights he had started, money he had borrowed and never paid back, and promises he had made while drunk that he never kept. It was a picture of a man who was slowly destroying himself and hurting everyone around him. But at the community center, the story was different. The director there told him about the volunteer work he had been doing, helping to serve meals to homeless people. She said he had been reliable and kind, always willing to stay late to help clean up. After a week of piecing together his past, David sat on the same park bench where he had first woken up. He had a choice to make. He could try to reclaim his old life with all its problems and pain. Or he could start fresh, building a new identity from the ground up. He thought about Linda, the woman who had loved him but couldn't save him from himself. He thought about the people he had hurt, the trust he had broken, the opportunities he had wasted. But he also thought about the good things he had done, the people he had helped, the potential he had shown. The old David was gone, erased by whatever had happened to him that night in the park. Maybe it was a medical condition, or maybe it was just the result of too much alcohol and too little sleep. It didn't matter now. What mattered was that he had been given a second chance, a clean slate that most people never get. He could choose which parts of his old life to keep and which parts to leave behind forever. He started by going back to the coffee shop. Sarah was surprised to see him looking clean and well-dressed. He had used the last of his money to buy new clothes and get a haircut. He looked like a different person. "I want to apologize," he told her. "I know I probably wasn't always the best customer. I want to start over if that's okay with you." Sarah smiled. "Of course it's okay. We all deserve second chances, David." "Your coffee is on the house today." He went to the grocery store and apologized to the owner for whatever he had done in the past. He promised to be a better customer going forward. The owner was suspicious at first, but he agreed to give David another chance. At the library, he threw himself into volunteer work. He helped more students learn to read, and he started a new book club for people who were trying to rebuild their lives. Many of them were like him, people who had made mistakes and were looking for a fresh start. Finding Linda was the hardest part. He discovered that she worked as a nurse at the local hospital. He waited for her outside one evening, knowing that she might not want to see him at all. When she saw him, her face went through a range of emotions: surprise, anger, sadness, and finally caution. "What do you want, David?" she asked. "I thought I made it clear that we were done." "I know," he said. "I'm not here to ask you to take me back. I'm here to apologize and to tell you that you were right to leave me. I wasn't treating you the way you deserved." He told her about his memory loss, about discovering the two different lives he had been living, and about his decision to start over. She listened carefully, studying his face as he spoke. "I don't know if I believe you," she said finally. "You've lied to me so many times before, but you do seem different. You look different too. Healthier." Months passed and David built a new life for himself. He got a job at the community center, helping to coordinate their volunteer programs. He moved to a smaller, cleaner apartment that he could afford on his salary. He stopped drinking entirely. Sometimes little pieces of his old memory would come back. He would remember a conversation with Linda, or a night when he had done something particularly stupid while drunk. These memories were painful, but they reminded him why he had chosen to start over. He realized that forgetting his past hadn't been a curse at all. It had been a gift, a chance to see himself clearly for the first time. He had been able to choose which parts of his identity to keep and which parts to throw away. The old David had been trapped by his mistakes, unable to break free from the cycle of drinking and disappointment. The new David was free to become whoever he wanted to be. One day, almost a year after he had woken up in the park, Linda came to see him at the community center. She had been watching from a distance, she told him, seeing how he had changed his life. "I want to believe that this is real," she said. "But I'm scared. I've been hurt too many times before." "I understand," he said. "I'm not asking you to trust me right away. I'm just asking you to give me a chance to prove that I've changed. We can start as friends if you want." They began to spend time together again, slowly rebuilding their relationship. Linda was careful and cautious, but she could see that David really had become a different person. He was reliable now, kind and focused on helping others rather than just himself. 2 years after his awakening in the park, David finally learned what had happened to him that night. A doctor at the hospital told him that he had been brought in unconscious, apparently after a serious fall. He had hit his head hard enough to cause temporary amnesia. The doctor was amazed by David's recovery, not just from the head injury, but from the obvious signs of alcohol abuse that had been evident when he was first brought in. "Whatever happened to you," the doctor said, "it saved your life. You were killing yourself slowly before that night." David nodded. He had already figured that out for himself. The man who had woken up in the park had been dying, poisoned by his own choices and unable to find a way out. The memory loss had given him the chance to escape from a life that was spiraling toward destruction. Today, David Miller is a different man entirely. He married Linda in a simple ceremony at the community center where they had fallen in love again. He runs programs for people struggling with addiction, helping them find their own second chances. He never got all of his memories back, and he's grateful for that. The pain and shame of his past life remain mostly buried, allowing him to focus on the present and the future. He has learned that sometimes the greatest gift you can receive is the chance to forget who you used to be. Every morning he still stops by Sarah's coffee shop for his usual order. But now he pays for the coffee of the person behind him in line, a small act of kindness that has become his daily ritual. He sits at the same corner table, but instead of reading alone, he often meets with people who need help or encouragement. And every week he returns to the park where his new life began. He sits on the same bench and reflects on how far he has come. Sometimes he sees other people who look lost or confused, and he offers them the same kindness that strangers once showed him. The man who forgot his name discovered that identity isn't just about remembering who you were, it's about choosing who you want to become. His story reminds us that we all have the power to change our lives, even when it seems impossible. Sometimes the greatest tragedy can become the greatest gift. David's memory loss, which seemed like a disaster at first, actually saved his life and the lives of everyone around him. It gave him the chance to start over, to build a better version of himself from the ground up. We might not all get such a dramatic second chance, but we can all choose to leave our mistakes behind and become better people. The past doesn't have to define us. Every day, we wake up with the opportunity to be someone new, someone better, someone who makes the world a little bit brighter. That's our story for today. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're never too lost to find your way home.